Wednesday, August 30th, special edition of the Dome Foamers podcast. I'm your host, Christian Kruger, and I'm here with a special guest and Brian Dorton. So, boys, let's go. All right. Normally we're doing an Astros podcast, and we still are, but we have a special guest tonight from inside Texas and the On3 Network, publisher Eric Nahlin. Eric, I appreciate you joining us. I've been a member on the site since I think 2016. I'm going to give you a little props here. I've been members of other sites, but Inside Texas is my favorite, and y'all do a great job, and I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me on. I love to talk Stros. I love to talk Longhorns and college football in general. So this sounds like a good place.
Man, you're in the right place. That's it. That's
No doubt. We're going to get right to it. So first things first, a little housekeeping. Stros won today, 7-4, swept the Red Sox.
Sweep. Get the brooms.
Yep, five in a row. Aroldis Chapman, as he normally does, gave us a gift, hitting the Mets with bases loaded in the 10th inning. So the Rangers are now in third place in the West. And
Nice
we're not going to
pitch.
dwell too much on that till the end. Thank you, Chapman. And the Rangers are doing what we said we would do on the Dome Homers podcast. But tonight, we're getting into college football.
Oh,
It's
man.
back. It's here. I basically took last weekend as a preseason, in my opinion, with that week 0. Now the real games start. And so we're going to do predictions of the Longhorns, predictions of Brian Dorton's Aggies, Power 5 conference winners, 4 playoff picks, national champ, and SEC, and talk about the SEC move for the Horns back to playing the Aggies. And that's why we have Eric on tonight. So I'm just going to get right to it. Eric, I've read your stuff on Inside Texas, but I'm going to give you the floor for what your thoughts on the schedule predictions for Texas, and then Brian and I will give our takes. So the floor is yours for the Longhorn predictions for 2023.
Yeah, well, I mean, with Texas, they're going to be favored in every single game except for one. You know, that hasn't always been the problem, but that hasn't always been the case. The problem has been actually winning the games that they should. This is a year that I think they have the talent, the depth, and the experience, continuity with the coaching staff to where they should win at least all, maybe not all those games. I think they will drop a conference game. I've got them predicted at 10-2. That's just the way the ball bounces in college football. You have your up games, your down games. Some of those teams know Texas quite well and have played them tough in the past. So I think one of those teams probably has a good chance of sneaking by them. And I think Alabama on the road at night is obviously a very difficult game. And that's the one game that they're not favored in. Other than that, I think the schedule sets up very well, and I'm not ruling out 11-1 in the playoffs. But I understand some of the hesitance that people have with Texas because of the long malaise that they've been in. Maybe there was a couple games even last year that they could have won that they didn't. So they have to prove that they can win. That's the biggest roadblock to this season.
Yeah, my concern now, my prediction is also 10-2. I think they can beat Alabama, absolutely, but I need them to show me. I'm a little concerned that everywhere I look now, it's 10-2.
Yeah, right.
There's a ton of predictions out there for 10-2. The Big 12 title game should be the goal. I'm not big on talking about the playoff until you won the Big 12. That should be the goal. And then if the chips fall and you take care of your business, that would be a great, I say icing on the cake. But go win the Big 12. I also predict 10-2. My prediction is they lose a close one in Alabama, and I think that game in Fort Worth is going to be the one. And that's, look, it might be someone else. Hopefully they can win that game. Looking at the schedule, that seems like the toughest matchup for the Horns. I've talked to you on the boards of Inside Texas for a while, and we've met a couple times. I have PTSD, and I want to get rid of that PTSD, but I want them to come show me. The weapons are there. They've got everything. They've built the roster. Now it's time to go do it on the way out and send a nice little parting gift to Brett Yormark. And I think they're going to win the Big 12. I personally think they're going to play Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game. But that's why we're here with predictions. We'll see how close we get. But Brian, what's your take on your rival Longhorns?
As much as I hate to say this, and I truly hate to say this, especially in front of Kruger, I mean, Texas is as stacked as they've ever been. And, man, like on paper, this team is really good, like scary good. And knowing that you guys are going to be an opponent as soon as a year from now of ours. It's a daunting schedule, or it's a daunting roster to look at. I think that y'all have the tools and the talent to beat Alabama. It's going to be a good game. I don't think I would put money on it, depending on where the points are going to be. But I think, you're absolutely right, Eric. I think that's going to be the one game that you guys are going in as dogs. I still think it's going to be a -2 type game, or maybe -3.5, if even. And I don't know. I don't, even if it were -3, I think 3.5, I would take those points, because I think it's going to be.
I jumped on it about a month ago at Horns +7.5.
Yeah, I think it's 6.5 last time I looked, but I don't gamble all that often, so I haven't really paid too close attention. But the more I hear about Jalen Milroe being the likely starter, the more I like UT's chances. That makes to me, that makes Alabama much more one-dimensional.
Yep.
Maybe it gives them a little more experience, but I think there's a big trade-off there. Texas is going to be able to sit in cover 3, watch the run really well, and force them to beat them over the top. And I think Milroe really plays to UT's strength. So I'm not ruling out picking Texas the closer we get to that game. I definitely want to see Alabama this weekend.
Yeah.
Texas this weekend, but I'm not. Texas is not going to be intimidated going into Tuscaloosa, knowing that they probably should have won last year.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Well,
I think there's a lot of confidence going, because of that game last year. There's a lot of confidence going into this one.
Yeah.
Go ahead, CK.
Experienced roster. Texas has a lot of grown men on it. They're not going in there with a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds expected to play big roles.
I was going to ask, it sounds like you're leaning towards thinking Milroe is going to be the quarterback. I am too. And I do, your point is, my background. Making a team one-dimensional is a great thing. So I agree with all that. My one concern is, Eric, is if I have one concern with him quarterback, is setting the edge. With the power quarterback game. That guy, let me tell you what, that guy's a tailback. He's not a quarterback.
Yeah.
He is a tailback. He is every bit one of the best runners I think will face all year, if he truly is the guy. So I am concerned about setting the edge. I'm not worried about the interior with the big boys Texas has, Jalen Ford and so forth. I am a little concerned with him setting the edge. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, setting the edge is a concern for sure, especially the Ethan Burke side. Not nearly as concerned going towards Barron Sorrell towards the field. Barron held up quite well last season. I think they're going to have answers for that. Again, that's why I mentioned cover 3 too. Cover 3 has every gap with a man in it. The addition of Jalen Catalon is huge because he's an excellent run defender. We're expecting him to be healthy for that game. Of course, that's huge. Ryan Watts is a terrific run defender, so you've got another guy out on the perimeter to that same side of Burke that we're concerned about. And then there's ways they can go bigger. They could put Sorrell on that side if they want to, and they could put Alfred Collins out at end. They could put a couple other guys out there. They can do some things. I don't think they're going in with the idea that Ethan Burke's going to be a great run stopper in that game, and I imagine they'll have backup plans for that. But yeah, I mean, if they try to play it straight up with Burke there, that is a bit of a concern for sure.
Yeah, I don't. Without being able to have eyes on him, I'm with you. And, y'all broke this down very well in Inside Texas. I think we're going to see a ton of Collins on the end for that game. I don't think we're going to see – I think for that, Kansas State, possibly Oklahoma, depending on what kind of packages they will out. And Burke's going to play a lot, but I think in Alabama and Kansas State for sure, you're going to see a ton of Collins on the edge.
Yeah, if Alabama's in a 2 tight end set, you're going to see Collins on the edge, and Alabama's probably going to be in that kind of. They're going to want to deflate the ball. They're going to want to slow things down as much as possible and try to control the clock and run the ball. So they probably will be in a lot of 12 personnel. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, very physical, very similar to last year. It's just now Texas has more firepower, which gives that there's reason for optimism there.
Absolutely. The one game other than Alabama that most concerns you.
Well, I picked TCU as the loss,
Okay.
but that's more about just probabilities. I think they're going to drop a game somewhere. I don't know to who. Could be Baylor, but I don't think it. I don't think it's going to be Kansas State, even though I think Kansas State is probably the second best team in the conference. I think that sets up well for Texas. They've got so many question marks on defense, and Texas has them at home. So I could see, TCU's after Kansas State. One thing my sources always say year in, year out, the game after Kansas State, everybody's a little bit more sore than they normally are. That's just a physical game. And so having TCU on the road next week is a chance that they could trip up. Their defensive coordinator had Texas's number last year, but I don't think he's going to have a different game plan because Texas is going to threaten the whole field in ways that they couldn't last November. I just think at this point that they're going to lose a game. They have to prove to me that they can win consistently on the road. So that's why I picked TCU. Texas is the better team than TCU this year, but it doesn't always work out that cleanly in football. I mean, we've seen Alabama lose to Texas A&M a couple times, right? One in Tuscaloosa and one in College.
One at home. Yeah, I tell you what, I'm not sold on TCU this year yet. I mean, obviously yet,
there's
but
not to be for sure.
Yeah, I think that I need to see a lot more of them before I'm immediately, giving them the pedigree that they think, that they deserve. But
they lost so much on offense. They have so much they have to retool. Chandler Morse, we still don't have an idea how good he is. He beat out Max Duggan last year. So I think the natural inclination was he beat off Duggan, he's going to be good, but I don't think that's how it works. They've got to replace their two best offensive linemen. They got to replace their 3 or 4 best wide receivers, their 2 best running backs. So that's a total retooling. Their defense should be good, but again, they lost their 2 best pass rushers, and priorities on pass rush. So they have a lot of answers. I'm looking at more of just a probabilistic loss.
Yeah, me too.
Look at them on paper. Texas is the better team. There's no question about it.
I'm looking forward to both of the Kansases, though. I really am. I agree. I think Texas will beat Kansas State, and Kansas State, that'll be the better game. I think Kansas as a whole this year is going to be a really fun team to watch. And I think that, they're going to throw the ball a whole lot. They're going to score a lot of points. I think they're going to be pretty close to that. What is it? Was it 2019 BYU team where whatever the over is, hit it no matter what.
Yeah, I think they're kind of a callback to that exciting Big 12 team that's also innovative. There's not nearly as much of that in the Big 12 as there was maybe 8 or 9 years ago. So they're going to put a lot of points on the board. Their defense is going to struggle, but they're going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. I had Iowa State game circled as the conference game until they decided to bet on it. And then that's just they're going to be bad.
Well, I wanted to go to that game to get retribution. The old ladies in the stands that night were talking crazy trash, and I mean it was all in good fun. But I want to go back to the same seats and try to find them. I had a lot of fun until the game. Of course, that's the famous one where Bo Davis lost his mind, and I think that was the night we realized just how big of the rebuild Sark had ahead of him. I think after they win in Ames this year, it's going to be a good reminder of how far Sark is taking the program in a relatively short time.
I just want to see Matt Campbell and his 5-star culture one last time. That's all I want to see. All right, so I had to get that shot in on Matt Campbell
and all the money he left on the table, by the way.
All of it. Let's transition. Let's transition to Dorton's Aggies. I think what I'm interested in with the Aggies, obviously now that Texas is moving to the SEC, they're going to play each other every year, which is, Dorton knows this. Texas OU. I was fortunate enough with my dad to go to that game. I've been to that game a lot when I was a kid. However, it's a different experience than the A&M Texas game. And we spent every Thanksgiving, I've sat in stands with that guy up there in Dorton, in College Station and in Austin. And it's just a different mindset. And that game going away was heartbreaking. And I'm so thrilled that it's back for the state of Texas. It's exactly what it should be.
Can't wait.
I can't wait. That the electricity a couple weeks into that game or coming to that game is going to be unbelievable. It's going to be unbelievable. People, there's people that have never been to this game.
Yeah, right. I went to high school in a pretty small Texas town. We were 3A at the time, and it was split. At that time, when I was there, it was mainly A&M with the UT guys going on. Now it's a little more split. And it was a lot of fun. For that day, you go over to your friend's house, you're underage drinking all day, having the time of your life.
Yeah.
And the room is split. And one room is more nervous than the other. One side of the room is more nervous. And then after the game, one is more miserable. And then you talk trash and then you go have fun together, So I miss it. I think it's great for the sport. I think it's great for the state. It's great for friendships. There's definitely going to be some verbal fisticuffs from time to time. But it's something that you can gather, especially around Thanksgiving too. I love that. I love
I think that's great. That's funny. I've been both politely and not so politely asked to leave. Let's see, Royce Kruger, Christian's father, has both politely and not politely removed me from his house a few times.
Yes.
And a couple other, and a couple other dads that we would when growing up. It was so much fun. We had such a great time though, win or lose.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'm glad it's back.
I didn't grow up hating Aggies. I didn't. I was a California kid, so I learned about the rivalry later. And Ricky Williams came to Texas. A couple of my friends were going to Texas, and I was a kid from Southern California and lived in Northern California too. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm just more of an Austin type of guy. But I didn't grow up hating Aggies. I almost married an Aggie, and I love her family to this day. So, the online Aggies, that's a little bit different.
Well,
I couldn't agree more.
Let's transition there, because on one end with the A&M, I think they made a great hire with Bobby Petrino. From a play calling standpoint, if he's truly calling plays, which it sounds like he is.
It sounds like it. Yeah.
And yeah. I think it's a great move. On the second side of that thing, or the other side, is him and Jimbo coexisting, and I just don't know if those two personalities are going to work and function. For A&M's sake, I hope they do, because I think they'll be a better football team that way.
Well, someone's ego and personality is going to have to get out of the way, and I don't think either of them are able to do that.
I don't know either. We're going to see. But I don't follow A&M to the extent that I follow Texas off of Inside Texas. But I'm going to have Eric break down what he thinks of the Aggies. Then I'm going to go to you, Brian, and then I'm going to give you my prediction. But that's just where I'm setting this thing up. So, Eric, what are your thoughts on 2023 A&M and that whole marriage of Fisher and Petrino?
Yeah, well, first of all, Brian's going to know A&M better than me. There's some things I get some priority information on just through through channels, but I don't follow them nearly as closely as A&M fans follow Texas. But I can't shake the image of Buddy Ryan punching Kevin Gilbride when I think about Jimbo and Bobby Petrino. That's
a great one.
There. You don't know if things are going well, things are going to work. If things are not going well, then I'm not sure that they have the temperaments and personalities to work through it together. So that could be where there's the tension, right? Everything's fine until there's adversity. How do they respond after the first bad game, or maybe there's a loss or two? When I look at their schedule, I see 5 wins for sure. I see only 2 losses. So this is going to come down to 5 toss-ups. Games that I have as toss-ups are at Miami. I think A&M probably wins that game. I have zero faith in Mario Cristobal. Auburn, I've got that as a toss-up, mainly on the strength that Gus Malzahn can scheme people up. The guy's just really good, and I think he's got a good, steady quarterback, a couple decent wide receivers. He's going to move the ball. I have that as a toss-up. It's at home, and Aggies obviously.
Hugh Freeze, you mean? Hugh Freeze?
Yeah. Sorry.
I know. It's hard to keep up with it's hard to keep up with who Auburn has head coaching.
Right. I think I've been confusing Hugh Freeze and Gus, and obviously Gus was there when they won the national championship.
Yep, absolutely.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Arkansas I have as a win for A&M, but that game has been close more often than not. But I still have that as a win. Alabama I have as a toss-up. They've beaten Alabama before. Alabama's going in there with they're going to have more clarity at quarterback than they will in week 2 against Texas. But that's still a toss-up. Tennessee, I got as a loss. South Carolina, I have as a toss-up. Beamer's doing well there. 3rd year in their system. South Carolina beat them last year. A lot of people are pretty excited about South Carolina. I think A&M wins that one. Home field advantage is big. At Ole Miss, toss-up. There's going to be talk about a lot of talking before that week. Lane Kiffin and Jimbo.
That'll be big.
Lane's going to have his guys up for that. I think Jackson Dart is going to be a household name by then, again, like he should have been last year.
Yeah.
And so I think that's probably a loss because it's a road game. Mississippi State, ACU, that's a win. And then at LSU, I think that's a loss. LSU, I think, is one of the has a decent chance, an outside chance to make it to the playoffs. So, I don't know. It's going to come down to those toss-up games. Probably I'm thinking 7-5 or 8-4.
Yeah.
All right, Jordan. Give us your Aggie take.
I've been at 8-4 for a bit. I think our 4 are going to be Bama, Tennessee, and I don't know which of the 2 Mississippis. but we're not beating both of them. It's not happening. And I think of the two, obviously, I think that Mississippi State is on paper going to be have a more likelihood of getting the win, but I just don't know, because they're still. I mean, they
watch out for the ghost of Mike Leach.
They're still there.
The absence of Leach and the new first-year defensive minded head coach. I've got to go with Mississippi State. With A&M, they do have a decent quarterback. They're going to have confidence too. They won last year. But I think Ole Miss, the road game's tougher.
I think what my concern is, I think that we are going to lose one of those. I think if we beat Ole Miss, we will have put a lot of eggs in a basket, and we're going to go into that Mississippi State game, and it'll just be it's going to be one of those let's look forward, let's look at LSU type games. Even if Mississippi State is down. So it just concerns me, and I'm going just on I really am the Aggies. I am a battered spouse to this team. Every year it's the same thing. Every year, and at the end of the year it's the same thing, and it's a tough road to be on.
Call your shot. What do you think?
Self-help here. I think that A&M's big problem is they have very little margin of error when it comes to health. Depth is lacking big time. So their season,
I think offensively our depth is light. I think defensively we've got some. I think our D-line. I think our D-line will be pretty stacked, and it's got some. There's some, and our linebackers have some actual upperclassmen.
Well, so you guys are starting a true freshman. It sounds like Torian York at linebacker.
Yeah,
who I thought was talented, but man, that's linebacker is a very tough position to play so early because there's so much going on mentally.
Yeah,
I think the swing game. I think the swing game for A&M is Auburn. I think they're going to beat. I'm with Eric on. I think they're going to go down to Miami and beat. Cristobal's not ready for that. I think Miami overwhelms them.
I agree.
From the defensive side of things, and I think if they can get over Hugh Freeze scheming them up, because he can. Now I've got a lot of concerns with Auburn's quarterback situation. I never thought I would see a Michigan State portal to Auburn and start. That just blows my mind.
Yeah. I think we would have taken Peyton Thorne at Texas in 2021 without a doubt.
100%.
Yeah. So
100%.
And
it could have been a lot worse. It could have been a lot worse for Freeze.
Yeah, I think Arkansas. I think if they beat Auburn, Arkansas is a toss up just because of the history there. I think A&M's. Everyone has holes. I think A&M's first 22. Is going to be pretty dang good.
Yeah.
I think it's like Eric kind of stole it from me the same way, but I think if injuries are sustained, then it can be a problem. And of course, they're playing in the SEC every week. So I think 8-4 is the number. I'm going to call my shot there. Dorton, did you decide to go on 8-4?
Yeah. 8-4 has been it.
Yeah.
I mean, we might get lucky. We might get lucky and
sure.
beat both Mississippi's, but I think 7-3. 8-4, 9-3.
I look at Mississippi State two ways with A&M. Mike Leach owned them at Tech and at Mississippi State.
God.
Now,
not even.
We all know that, right? Now, Mike Leach is one. Mike Leach, absolutely, RIP, one of my favorite coaches of all time. I had the fortunate pleasure of meeting him multiple times. He's classic.
I pulled him out of the Negro Hotel bar at midnight, absolutely hammered one night, and got him up to a room where a bunch of people were waiting to meet him, a bunch of agents and stuff. And we drank until about 3 or 4 in the morning. I love it. Night. I wish I could remember a little bit more of it, but yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
So I'm going to tell a quick story now that you got Leach stories going. So my last year or two coaching, we had a couple of talented offensive players, and we were in the DFW area. And I'll never forget my head coach looking over and says, "Who's that?" We'd have guys show up at spring. Eric, you've done it. Your staff, you guys do it. Jerry does it all the time. And my head coach goes, "Who is that over there?" Because they always come in the coaching office, introduce themselves, chit chat. Well, we come out to spring ball and they're looking at our tailback and one of our receivers, which one of them actually ended up going to Tech. And he's leaning on this guy's leaning on the goalpost in a black shirt untucked, jorts and flip flops. And he goes, Kruger, go check out who that is. Well, I walk up, it's Mike Leach. And I said, I recognize him. I said, hey coach, how you doing? He goes, good, good, good. Hey, do you know where the nearest bar is?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And I said, yeah, it's about 2 minutes that way on Highway 121. And I mean,
I love it. That sounds
classic, just classic, man. I never knew, I did, but I really didn't until he passed away. His coaching tree is unbelievable. It's incredible. So, all right, Eric, are you going with 8-4 with A&M?
Yeah, I'll do 8-4. I can't go higher just because of the depth. But I do like some of the frontline talent. I'm a big fan of the receivers. I like Wegman to make a big jump. I liked him coming out of high school quite a bit. They got some talent at running back. I think the offensive line has a good chance to be pretty dang good by the end of the season. But again, they're kind of thin there and a little banged up early. But I think the offense is going to be pretty good if Wegman stays healthy.
One thing I know Petrino knows. Oh, go ahead, Jordan. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm stepping on your toes right here, but I think having Bobby in there, and if he is actually calling the plays and having an updated offensive scheme, from the 2000s or forward, I think it will be a heck of a difference in seeing because there is some talent there.
Yeah.
Now we just gotta embrace
I'm not going to tell Petrino what to do. I feel like I can tell Jimbo what to do, but if Petrino's calling the plays, one thing I would like to see is I would like them to use Stewart across the middle on crossing routes more than just going vertical. I think you can get him in space and when he gets the ball in the hand in space, good night. And I think Texas is actually going to do more of that with Whittington and Worthy. I don't think you're going to see Worthy stretch the field as much this year. He will. But I think you're going to see I think you're going to see other vertical threats and get those guys that can run like that across the middle in space.
Absolutely, yeah. Stewart needs to be more of a catch and run than run and catch receiver because he's that explosive. And same thing with Worthy. Worthy's going to look like they're doing it as much as last year because it's going to be more effective, but they're not going to have nearly as many deep targets failed deep targets for sure as last year. But just get the ball in their hands, man.
Absolutely. All right, so there we go. We got Longhorn predictions. We got the Aggie predictions. Let's move on to Power 5 conference predictions, which will lead us into our playoff picks. I want to start out West because I think this could be interesting with what is known as the Pac-12 for the last time.
Which conference is that?
Yeah, the Pac.
I don't know.
Left conference. Yeah.
Yeah. Stanford, I think, is begging to get in the ACC. That's a story for a whole nother day. I don't understand what's going on. But, all right, so Pac-12, honestly, what's amazing about it is for the first time in a long time, they have legit 4 or 5 teams.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be fun this year. They're going out
USC will be good. Oregon's going to be good. Washington will be in the mix, at least for the conference. I think there are some legit teams there.
So, Eric, I'm going to let you start off with who you think is going to win the Pac-12.
Well, I got UW. I got UW winning that. I like their offense. I like their receivers. I think they've got some defensive linemen. A couple of guys. One of the guys that's going to garner a lot of attention this year was a PK recruit. Going to get drafted relatively high. Top to bottom, they're good. Phoenix is the question is he just has to stay healthy. But I think they're very good. They've got Oregon at home. They beat Oregon on the road last year. They do have to go to USC, but I think they can even win the conference by suffering a loss there if they do. So that's who I'm going. But I mean, Pac-12 is going to be probably the most intriguing as far as who's going to win it, unless Texas stubs their toe this year. I think everything else kind of seems. Well, I guess Clemson, FSU. We'll get to that. But yeah, I got to go Washington. Also, I'm a little biased to Washington. My dad lived a stone's throw away in the early 90s when they were winning. That was actually my first college football team, even before Texas. I got a sister that graduated from there. So I'm a little biased.
Don James?
Yeah, Don James, the Steve Entman team,
yeah.
Early 90s, Mario Bailey, a bunch of other guys. Washington has a pretty good football tradition. So I'm going with UW. But it's very close. I could see USC winning. I could see Oregon winning. And I could see Utah playing spoiler just because of how resilient and physical that team is. I mean, it was one of the most fun games of last year was watching Utah just physically beat up beat up USC, and they're still going to have
right.
that in their favor this season, I believe.
Well, I gotta stop letting Nahlin go first because he took my pick. But we'll go to me first. That was mine. I just think Washington has the best defense of the contenders. I think that's going to separate them. I love Utah. I love Kyle Whittingham. I could listen to that guy speak and just talk football forever. I wonder how hurt Cameron Rising transfer from Texas truly is.
Yeah,
He has been better than I thought he was going to be. He's been a hell of a player. Talk about a kid that fits a perfect scheme and attitude and mental makeup. He is a perfect fit.
I think I knew he could throw it. He's tougher than I thought he was.
I agree.
Yeah, he's a tough son of a gun.
I also thought we would see more Jaquindon Jackson, but Cameron Rising just can't. I mean, they finally put Jackson at tailback last year and he made some great runs.
Yeah, I thought running back or linebacker was his future position, and he's a hell of a running back. So he'll play in the NFL. He's like sort of like a TJ Duckett or something, not quite as big, but kind of runs that same way.
Yeah. So I never would bet against Utah. I just am concerned of how healthy Rising's going to be. So my pick is UW. And I was not impressed with USC's defense the other night against San Jose State.
No,
I wasn't.
Me neither.
I think they look better. I do think they've got some better players. I don't trust Alec Grinch, and frankly, I don't trust Lincoln Riley managing the defensive staff.
Yeah, right. I just don't know that he's ever going to have a tough culture to win it. You know, people were raving about him for years, and they still are raving about him. And I'm indifferent on him because obviously he's a great offensive mind, but he hasn't had a tough team yet.
You can't trust someone that cooks their brisket that way. You just can't.
No, yeah. If you boil your brisket or microwave it, you're not going to win.
Give me a
no.
Give me
so on that alone, I'm taking Washington. But in all seriousness, I do think they have the best defense. Those watching Penix and those receivers in the Alamo Bowl, those dudes are legit.
Yeah, they got 3 receivers that are legit and a good.
They do.
Very experienced quarterback, and they can win shootouts like you intimated. So it's not like they're going to get behind big to anybody.
No. So UW's my pick as well. Dorton, who do you got?
Yeah. So you stepped over my Cam take. If we'd done this a week ago, I'd have been Utes all in. Utes are going to win it. I don't trust how hurt he is myself. I don't know. I think that I think Cam is the breadth of that team. And without him, it's going to be a long road. So with that being said, the winner of the team formerly known as, or the league formerly known as the Pac-12 will be the Oregon Ducks.
I think people are overlooking them. I really do. I think Dan Lanning's going to bring some physicality.
I can't wait to see him.
Well, once he gets his schemes and players in for his scheme, it's tough. We all know I'm a Longhorn fan, but I'm concerned with Oregon and going to the Big Ten, and that's the story for another day.
Yeah.
But Dan Lanning, I do think, can recruit, and we know he can scheme. He's just going to. I just wonder how he's going to get enough players up there in Oregon to battle in the Big Ten. I don't know.
Well, there was that speculation of Oregon going to the Big 12. They would have blown up recruiting. I mean, they just absolutely would have become
100%.
Yeah, and so I mean, that would have been probably better for their national title aspirations. Now they're, but this is not going to make them as much money as going to the Big Ten. So.
Right. Yeah. I think they could have came in the Big 12 and owned it.
Yep, absolutely, from afar.
But it's the great American dollar, and that's what's driving it. So all right, so we got 2 UWs and Oregon. Got it. All right, let's move on to the ACC. Eric, I'm gonna let you start us off here as well because you're our guest. So I think the ACC is a 2-team race, but let me see what you got.
There are 2 teams in this
2-team race, and it's probably the conference I pay the least attention to. But I've got Clemson. They've got FSU at home, and I'm not a huge buyer of Norvell yet. He's got a little more explaining to do to me. He's lost some games he shouldn't have in his time there. They've looked poorly coached at times. It wasn't just losses. It seemed like they were making some key mistakes that I didn't really understand where they're coming from. They do have South Carolina on the road. They lost to South Carolina at home last year, Clemson did. So we'll see. But they'll, it's the last game of the season, and South Carolina is certainly going to have Clemson's full attention after losing at home. So I'm going Clemson. Klubnik, second-year quarterback. They've got really good linebackers, probably the best pair of linebackers in the country. Dabo, I don't think Dabo's ever going to get back to his heights that he was, but I don't think he's ever going to truly fall off until he, unless he just goes late stage Mac Brown with it. So yeah, got to go Clemson. But if Florida State does have some talent, they've got a good triumvirate between the quarterback, wide receiver, and running back. But I think Clemson has a better team and a better coach.
All right, Jordan.
Totally. I gotta go Clemson as well. Obviously it's Clemson Seminoles. We're gonna know a whole lot. When is that? Is it Monday?
Sunday.
Sunday. Yeah. I think we'll know a lot more Sunday, or we'll know absolutely nothing at all.
Hopefully it's a cleaner game than last year between those two.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So, but I'm still not 100% that Florida State can go from being last year to winning a conference and running the table. I just don't. I'm not confident in that. So
I think Florida State would roll through this conference, they have the one team in the conference that can bully them. Florida State is going to create mismatches for teams with a 6'7" receiver, tailbacks, Jordan Travis. And I think they got Jared Verse. They got athletes at skill positions. The problem with Florida State is they've got the one bully in their conference that up front, especially on the D line, that can bully them.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mismatch. I want to pick Florida State. I just don't believe them in the offensive and defensive line side of things. And I think it's a bad mismatch for them from up front side of things.
Yeah, what is y'all's opinion? I mean, is there a team in the ACC right now besides Clemson and Florida State that can at least be a thorn?
Man.
How good is NC State? Did they get a quarterback? Because they lost their quarterback.
Yeah, it's Brennan Armstrong.
Oh, okay.
It was at UVA. Because Devin Leary.
He's not a bad quarterback. I thought
he's not, but I think what's more important is his offensive coordinator that he used to have is back there. So I do think they're going to be good.
Yeah.
But losing Devin Leary's a dude, and now him at Kentucky's going to be better than people think because they actually have a quarterback better than Will Levis coming up this year.
Right.
But yes, they're going to beat some people. I just don't see anyone at the class of Florida State and Clemson. I just don't. And I think Clemson's going to be the big bully again this year. I think they're going to bully Florida State. Now, as Dorton alluded to, I mean, we'll get eyes on Florida State Sunday night against LSU. That could change things.
Yeah.
But I just don't think Florida State's ready up front against Clemson.
And I just don't see anybody that could like make any kind of a splash there.
No.
I just don't.
I don't either. I've got Clemson as well, so we're all three are in agreement there. So
North
let's move on.
North Carolina does have Drake May, and he's got the capability of taking
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
I guess anyone close enough would be UNC, but
yeah, I love Drake May. They're just not going to stop anyone.
Right, I agree. But there's at least some potential upset there, and at least he's fun to watch. He's a fantastic.
Yeah, another sneaky game, and who I think is a phenomenal coach. Is Monday night when Clemson plays Duke and Mike Elko. I think Duke's going to be better. I just don't think they're ready up front to battle the Clemsons and Florida States. But I think Elko's a hell of a coach.
We're not ready to talk about that yet.
He's upwardly mobile as a head coach.
We're not, Eric. We're not ready to talk about that yet. Give me about 3 more years, then we can start talking about Elko.
Hey, maybe you will be talking about him when you can finally afford that buyout. In 3 more years.
All right. Let's move on to the Big Ten. I'm gonna let Eric get to end this one. So I'm gonna go first. Mix up a little bit. I mean, everything in my body wants me to take Ohio State because I want to see Jim Harbaugh melt down. But after what I've seen the last 2 years, they have just been the bully on the block, and I think they're better this year. I am going to go with Michigan. Part of me, I went down to the Alamo Bowl a year ago when Drew Aller was there, and I'll never forget this. I think I texted you, Eric. I said Drew Aller's got a cannon, and Jalen Gilbro is better than I thought he was. And I got to go sneak in the Alamo Dome for a little bit and watch some of that. Drew Aller at Penn State is the real deal. Well, we think he is. We'll see. So I think Penn State's going to be good. I just think Michigan's too talented, and I can't. For what I've seen the last 2 years compared to Ohio State up front in the trenches, I got to go Michigan.
Yeah, Penn State is a lot more than just Aller too. They've got
absolutely
one of the top tackles in the conference, or in the country, I should say. One of the best D linemen in the country, a good corner, even though they lost a great corner. Yeah, I'm just not a Penn State buyer. I don't believe in the coaching staff there. And I hate to say it, it's two of the. I mean, I think Yurcich can be good. And Manny Diaz has had his moments as a coordinator, not as a head coach necessarily. But I'm not a big buyer in James. John Blake here, James
Franklin.
Yeah.
I'm not either.
I think this one's pretty formulaic. It comes down to Michigan and Ohio State. And everything points to Michigan winning again. Dylan McCaffrey's going to have tons of experience by the time that game rolls around. Kyle McCord will have at least more than the first couple games, but big advantage there. Michigan has one of probably the best running back tandem in the country. They've got a good defensive line again, and I think they've got a lot of confidence after the last 2 wins over Ohio State. So, but I'm not ruling out Ohio State making the playoffs.
No doubt.
We've seen it before.
Absolutely.
I
All right,
think
Jordan, what do you got?
I think Michigan overall wins it. It wins the conference. I think it's going to be a foot race. I think there's a really good chance that Penn State is going to upset a few weekends here and there. I think that there's going to be a couple of those stupid losses, where
you love the Big Ten.
I can't stand them. God, I can't stand them.
Hey, I think Penn State's going to be worth watching because of Aller, though. They had the
they are
the tenured quarterback that just finally left. He's
Sean Clifford,
apparently. Sean Clifford. So I mean, Aller gives them a chance to be a lot more fun to watch. The Big Ten is usually when I go mow the yard or whatever. But
you don't want to stick around and watch Iowa and the Illini fight for the 10-point total.
Yeah, the copper bucket. I'm sure it's got some weird. I'm not a big Ten watcher. That's when I trying to do something around the house. I'm probably making breakfast tacos or something.
There you go.
UCLA is going to go, I think, to Rutgers next year and play a Big Ten conference game.
Unbelievable.
What?
Yeah,
that's so wild to me. It doesn't even make any sense.
Coast to coast.
Oh my gosh!
They're going to have to start. Listen, they're going to have to start that game. Just imagine if you live in Los Angeles, and if it's a 11 Central Time game, I mean, you're waking up.
Well, I mean, how about the
NFL games start at like 10 in the morning out there? That's how I grew up watching the Niners at 10 in the morning.
Not to go. How about the volleyball team or tennis team having to go across country to go play a match at Rutgers?
Yeah.
It just blows my mind. All right, let's do the Big 12 next. I'm going Texas.
I think this is a Texas unanimous. I don't
need to spend a whole lot of time on it after discussing it. I think it's Texas versus K-State. They just look like
the two
teams. I love climbing at K-State.
I do too. It's
going to be a work in progress throughout the season, but I think they'll get better as the year goes on. And they always have mature guys coming in. You never see them starting some scrawny freshman that gets pushed around. So maybe they lose some of the baseline talent on defense, but I think they'll still be assignment sound, which is going to keep them in a lot of games. And their offense has a chance to be pretty good, particularly their run game. They did lose a dynamic vertical threat at receiver. I'm not sure if they can replace him. Malik Knowles wasn't the greatest.
Malik Knowles,
He made you account for him. But the offense should be pretty dang methodical. Very good offensive line. Seasoned quarterback who improved a lot last year. Two good running backs. They do have a good slot receiver that's dangerous. So to me, they're just probably have the fewest questions. They still have a lot of questions, but they have the fewest questions outside of Texas.
I agree. That's my pick. I think it's Texas over K-State. I hate beating a team twice in 1 year. So hopefully Texas gets them in Austin, and then Texas takes care of business. Hey, but show me. Let's go.
Right.
What do you?
Someone on this podcast coined a phrase, the year after the year. Well, this is the year, right?
Yeah. The year before the year. Last year was
The year before the year. Year before the year.
Last year was the year before the year. I was tempering expectations.
Yeah.
I didn't think they were ready to break out in a big way. I knew that they were not getting the greatest quarterback play. A lot of questions, just a lot of questions throughout. Felt they would be improved. Said the defense was improved. The defense was improved, but they lack playmakers. But this year, there's really no question. So,
I think if, and this is a big if Jalen Catalon can stay healthy, he's worth one win. He's worth another win. But you just got to keep him healthy. The guy's a ball hawk, which Texas needed for a long. They haven't had in a while. Right. Jordan, you taking Texas?
I'm taking Texas, and
good. I'm glad this will be recorded. I love this.
How about this for a hot take, though? I don't think there's any question there. I mean, if I'll be honest, if Texas isn't in the Big 12 championship, something has gone incredibly wrong in Austin. Something has gone very wrong.
Sell a car or something too at that point.
But how about this for the hot take? Texas over UCF in the conference championship.
I don't hate that, and we did not talk about this. That's kind of funny you bring that up. I think UCF is going into Norman and going to beat Oklahoma.
Yeah, OU's got a lot of talent. I wish you had an OU friend to bring on here.
I'm glad. Eric, I don't have any OU friends.
Yeah, there you
go. Yeah, Dorton, I don't hate that at all. Malzahn will beat 3 teams he's not supposed to, and then he'll lose to a team he's not supposed to.
Yeah.
But I mean, he can get X's and O's. He can X and O's you to death. I love his system. I love how he runs the ball and with their power run game with the quarterback and the tailbacks. I think they're going to beat OU. I really do. I think he's an out-coach Venables. Of course, I want that to happen, but I would not be overly surprised if your prediction came true. All right, it's SEC. So, Dorton, your team's in the SEC already, so I'm gonna let you lead this one off.
I mean, it's hard not to chalk this and say Georgia, because my God, like they're going to be as good this year as they were last year. So
they are, but then you look at their schedule and you're like,
well, sure, but
no, their schedule's cake.
Yeah, they've got one tough game. It's at Tennessee.
Yeah, so why would you? I mean, the idea of like they are as loaded as they have been, and they're not going to have the same competition or during the season, right? So I don't know. I think that it's a foregone conclusion there.
Eric, they are going to meet some resistance, I think, in the championship game, though. I think LSU.
I agree, but
I mean, are they playing LSU or Bama?
I think they'll be playing LSU. I think LSU is going to be the SEC West representative.
I do too.
Okay.
I think it's Georgia LSU. And we can just. I mean, I think Georgia's going to beat them. I think they're going to find a way to beat them. Eric, did you think when Kirby got the job? I mean, we know he's highly respected. We know he was a hell of a recruiter already under Saban's staff. Did you think he was going to be this good, though?
Well, once I understood that he had the same institutional support that Saban had at Alabama, I knew it was going to start to trend this way. Yeah, I knew that they were just going to have too much baseline talent to screw it up. They're winning 2 national championships with an accountant at quarterback. Once they started getting those pieces,
it's a great line.
Once they started getting those pieces, and it became very close to me that they were that competitive in a way that only Alabama really was. Like I said, their institutional resolve to win after nice guy Mark Richt left. That's when I knew, okay, you got to take Kirby Smart seriously. I wasn't initially taking the hire seriously until I realized that recruiting was going to go almost on autopilot.
Yeah, that's fair.
I liked him. I knew he'd be good. I just didn't think I know that he would be this of a copy of Saban. I just didn't think I was ready for that. But I mean, so does everyone have Georgia?
Yeah, and to be clear, I didn't expect him to win back-to-back championships and all that, but I knew that he was going to have a chance and be in the conversation once they started landing all those guys. Once they started beating Alabama for recruits, knowing how Alabama lands recruits, it became pretty clear to me that Georgia was going to have some staying power.
Agreed. All right, who wants to go first from your 4 playoff picks?
I'll go.
Okay.
It's hard for me to come up with a fourth. The first 3 I have are Michigan, Ohio State, and Georgia. Ohio State first-year starter at quarterback, but they've got just so much offensive firepower that I don't think that that's really going to slow them down much, at least to start. So I think Ohio State's going to game team, but they're not guaranteed to make it, but I think they can get in with one loss. It's just hard for me to find a second loss, and they're not going to have to play in a conference championship game. So they can get in that way. Georgia, of course, Michigan, of course. Right now, with the knowledge that Milroe is likely the starter, I've got to go Texas over LSU. I do think that LSU has a chance to get in. They've got 2 tough games, Florida State coming up on Sunday, and then they're at Alabama, which is never easy. But I do think they win the SEC West, and we've seen the two teams get in from the SEC a couple of times. So I think that's doable. But I'm actually going with Texas for now. I predicted it for an article tonight on Inside Texas.
Oh, I can't wait to read it. And I can't wait to see the responses.
It's in a round table. So I went with it because the more I think about it, the more I like their chances. I think they might have a chance to get in at 10-2, honestly. 10-2 conference champs, because I think the Pac-12 is going to have some internecine warfare where a lot of teams it could just be round table bloodbath, and it could be a 9-3 team coming out of there, or a 10-2 team that doesn't look as good as Texas. So I think Texas can actually get in at 10-2, just given the landscape. A lot of new quarterbacks in the country, but Texas has a guy with experience and talent. Bama uncertainty there, Ohio State uncertainty there, Georgia with a little bit of uncertainty there as well. So I'm going to go with Texas sneaking in. Like I said, they could even get in at 10-2 with a little bit of luck.
Man, love it. I hope you're right. All right, Jordan.
So my 4 are Georgia at 1, Michigan at 2, Clemson at 3, and then Ohio State at 4.
Okay.
And Inside Texas subscribers will be livid.
You know what? Clemson's a good choice.
Absolutely
too.
Livid. But I think Clemson will. They might lose one game.
I think if you have 2 losses, you shouldn't be. You left
totally
yourself.
agree.
You left yourself up to them taking someone else.
But I think Clemson might have 1 loss, but there's a good chance they're undefeated.
Right.
I'm saying if you said if they took Clemson over Texas.
Oh, right.
If you have 2 losses, you leave yourself up to being picked over. You just do.
Let's say they're both at 11-1. They both win their conference, and Texas has a win over Alabama.
It's Texas.
Texas will be picked.
It's Texas. Yeah.
So yeah, Clemson definitely has a decent chance, and like you said, Dabo knows how to get there for sure.
Yep, totally agree.
Well, Dorton, me and you have 3 of the same. I've got Georgia, Michigan, Clemson, because I think Clemson's going to go 11-1, and I think Texas. My prediction is going to 10-2. I'm somewhat like Eric. The 4th was tough. I hate doing chalk, and I've just done chalk basically. So I'm going to go with an 11-1, 12-1 win in the Pac-12. I'm going UW. They've got experienced quarterback, great receivers. That says I love Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeBoer's scheming and play calling. I'm a huge fan of his.
Yeah,
I think they have enough defense. I don't think their defense is great, but I think they have enough defense for that conference. I think they have the best defense currently right now. Before we get to see them with our eyes of the top 4 or 5 teams in that conference, I think they win in the Pac-12 championship game, and I think they get in with 1 loss. Over Ohio State or LSU or 2-loss Texas. That's what I got.
Yeah, hey, that makes sense to me. I mean, on paper, I can see it. I thought about that too. I just think that, man, that conference has got so much uncertainty. There's 4 teams that can win it.
Agreed.
I can't say that about any other conference. We can't even come close to saying that about any other conference.
No,
I agree. And there is going to be some one-offs there, right? Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, they lost to who?
Yeah.
Type situation.
that happens a ton in the Pac-12. I mean, that happens a ton. All right, national champ. All right, is everyone going chalk? What do we got? Dorton, what do you got?
I mean, I will say, how about this? I'll at least say Georgia over Michigan.
Okay. Eric?
I think I would do Georgia over Michigan too. I'm definitely going Georgia. Although, I think there's a lot more uncertainty once you're in the playoffs. We saw that with TCU and Michigan last year.
Yep.
Sark with a month off, does that help Texas if it's Texas more than, or Kalen DeBoer, let's just say an offensive mind versus a defensive mind? I think that gives the advantage to the offensive mind, and you can.
I do too. I do
Yeah.
too.
So I think something weird could happen in the playoffs that they ran up against the wrong offensive team that had enough on defense to kind of at least keep pace there. Obviously, TCU was just clearly overmatched, but TCU doesn't have the size that Texas does. So I'm going with Georgia. I'm not predicting Texas, obviously, over them, but we'll see. Weird things happen.
Yeah. So Georgia's the best team. I'm not going to pick them because a couple of things. One, there hasn't been a three-peat champion since the 1930s Minnesota.
Yeah.
And everyone thought USC was going to do it. And then Vince Young decided to wear his cape, and that's not going to happen. So if that team couldn't three-peat, which that team was stacked, and Georgia is stacked, my biggest thing is I don't know how challenged they're going to be until the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a different animal. Now, Kirby Smart's a dude, man. So I'm not going to put anything past them. They're the chalk pick. They're the smart pick. I'm going to take Michigan because I think Jim Harbaugh is going to ride off in the sunset, win a national championship, and go to the NFL and say, "See you later, NCAA. I don't want to deal with you. I'm out."
Take your lawsuit and your suspension
I
talk.
can see him doing that too. But one thing Georgia has against them is the combo between the new offensive coordinator, who is a retread, and a freshman quarterback. So I mean, there's a potential stumble. They have South Carolina early in the season. Their first. I'm not saying they're going to lose, but I'm curious what the points are on that one.
I don't like you going through a whole season not truly being challenged.
Right, and their non-con is a joke. Their first two non-cons are a joke, and then they have South Carolina, who has live bodies.
Yeah,
but they're not.
Missouri should have beat them last year. I mean, Missouri should have done the same. Should have beat them last year.
Yeah, but you got Mike Bobo and Carson Beck.
Yep.
And so that doesn't inspire a ton of confidence, but they're the team wide baseline talent, power, strength, size, speed, confidence, swagger, all those things that they have. They know that they should win every game. Is definitely in their favor. It's just but they can get caught slipping by a team that puts points on the board.
Well, I'm taking Michigan. I love it, and that's our predictions. I want one more little housekeeping thing is the Dome Plumbers podcast has been nominated for the Internet Baseball Writers Association of America best new podcast for 2023. We'll put it out on all of our socials, so you can vote. The voting goes till September 8th. I want to thank Eric again for coming on, man. I know you guys are busy. It's game week. Y'all are blowing things up on videos and content on Inside Texas. I appreciate you taking the time. I really do. I know we've taken up some of your time tonight. So thanks again. Please go to Inside Texas. Check them out. It's the best site for Texas content, recruiting, X's and O's. I love it. I get fights on there. I tell Ian that he's wrong a bunch of times, and then Ian tells me that I'm wrong. And it's just a great board, and they do a great job. Also want to thank Two Gringos Chupacabra as our title sponsor. I know this is a special edition, so I did want to shout out to them for being our title sponsor, as well as Victoria Equipment Auction and being a sponsor of one of our segments. We missed Neil Mieski tonight, football coach, having to do extra things with family and just being a football coach this time of year. So we'll have him back. But I want to thank everyone for listening. Like, share, rate and review the Dome Plumbers podcast. And guys, appreciate it. Eric, one last thing before we go. What's your Stroh's prediction, since you're a Stroh's fan as well?
Oh man, it's we're not used to these pennant races, and not only a pennant race and a wild card race as well. So yeah, I'm not used to being nervous in late August, early September. So that's got my blood pressure up, along with the start of football season. But I am used to high leverage football games and Stroh's World Series games in the same night, so I'll probably manage it. Hopefully the bats keep it going so they can rest their arms a little bit, get some leads and rest their arms. I think it's the pitching's got to get right. They don't have the pitching, the starting pitching right now to win it. I think the bullpen's going to come around and keep it. I love Hector Neris. Yeah, obviously he had a strong outing today. Went, I think, 38 pitches or something, which is the most for the season. So I think the bullpen can actually hold it together and be good enough to win. not like last year. Christian Javier's the fulcrum. I don't know. Luckily, every time he pitches, it's like knowing your backup quarterback is in there. Everybody else picks up their game, and so they start mashing the ball left and right.
Yeah,
that's not sustainable in the playoffs, I don't think. So they got to get a third starting pitcher up and going, and first thing they got to make the playoffs. But anything can happen. Maybe they're the chosen team that squeaks in and wins it all. Don't put it past them. They're going to be a very, very difficult out. I guarantee nobody wants to draw them first.
Yeah, we were talking about this on the podcast this week. It's the AL is wide open, so just get in and see what happens. I'm a little surprised. Michael Brantley has mashed the ball 2 games.
Oh yeah,
I'm surprised.
That 0 for 4 was a thing of beauty.
I mean, I've never seen 4 balls hit harder for 0 for 4. And then today he had 3 hits? He had 2 hits. I know he had 2 hits at one time. I mean, he just wakes up and can hit. It's amazing.
Welcome back, Uncle Mike.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. It's so nice to see. All right, well that's all we have. That's the college football preview. Thank you again to Eric Nahlin joining us. And all I got to end this with everything, boys, is go Stros.
Go Stros.
Go Ags.
And hook 'em.
And hook 'em. And hook 'em.
See you guys.
Thanks, Eric.